Aloha, everybody. Welcome to Tea and Chi. Today we have with us Reiki Master Marco, and we're going to be talking about all things Reiki energy healing. So, just for everyone watching who doesn't already know you, Marco, because I know a lot of my close friends are your close friends, and a lot of people are familiar with you. So, let us know who you are and what Reiki means to you.
Wonderful, sir. Well, good morning. I'm just landed here in San Diego. I was on Maui, raking up some magic with the Sacred Sons over there. So I'm really happy to be home, and it's nice to like ground in with some tea and some familiar faces. And I just love chatting about this stuff. So it's great, man. So yeah, like you said, my name is Marco. I'm a Reiki master. I was saved by Reiki back in 2012. And I think that's kind of like it. The journey has just been so wild. It feels like a movie sometimes, but I'm now 28, living, and I'm sitting on the floor of my van that I named Appa because I love the avatar. So I'm feeling like Uncle Iroh right now, drinking this tea. And yeah, like I said, Reiki saved my life. I was at a place where I was really had lost hope and didn't know what to do. And my mom actually invited me to go do this Reiki healing with this woman who I didn't know, but I had a good feeling about it. And I wasn't really having many good feelings at that time in my life. And so I went, and I really got to rediscover my imagination. I really got to rediscover what it meant to like feel peaceful. It was a really turmoil time. It was like my first time away from college, or first time away from home going to college. And just, of course, all the stuff that you learn in college, most of it happens outside the classroom. And my like beautiful visual of the world got popped. And so from that, it was just like, after that pop, they call it the dark night of the soul. For me, it was just like the despair and the hopelessness that ultimately guided me to Reiki, which now, of course, looking at in hindsight, I'm super grateful for, because Reiki has brought me at this point, literally all around the Western Hemisphere. I've been up and down the West Coast offering Reiki. I have been into the desert. I've been down to the islands in Maui. I've been down to some islands in Belize, and it's been taking really good care of me, Reiki, as the more that I offer, this practice with people. It just seems, of course, like the universe is conspiring in my favor now. And so, yeah, in a nutshell, right now where I'm at, as I said, I'm in San Diego right now. This is where I was born and raised, and kind of like navigating between here and working with Sacred Sons. We offer alchemical containers for men to heal and grow and sharpen and get in touch with their primal side and all the good things that men need to do but don't really have space for. We've been incubating some really like intimate events out in Maui, and so we are now coming up on our 5th convergence, which is going to be a 200-man retreat out in the deserts of Hakumba, and that's happening on Earth Day, 420 or 422. What's the actual Earth Day? Is it 420 or 422?
421. I mean, I guess people start with cannabis on 420.
Right. Every day is Earth Day, baby.
That's right. Oh my goodness. This just for anyone who doesn't know, which probably would be most of the people watching this, but Marco and I connected on Instagram somehow, just synchronized random following each other years and years ago. And then we met at Convergence, at Omega Convergence, and just such an awesome experience with the men there, and connecting with people that I have brothers, friends for life from that. But on the note of Reiki, on the book of Reiki in our lives that's so similar. It's almost like I forgot how much Reiki had helped me save myself. It was so parallel. My experience to yours is in 2012, I had a massive Kundalini awakening, and I was very, as anyone who is familiar with the Kundalini energy, it's considered to be the dragon of energy at the base of your spine, the cerebral spinal fluid. And I had a spontaneous Kundalini awakening and just was really a bit haywire. And it was a dark night of the soul for me. And at the same time, all this energy was seeking to come through me, and felt really potently magical, but didn't know how to use it. And a year or so later, I had this strong feeling that crystals would help me. So I went into town, to my hometown, to check out this crystal store. And I was walking down the road, and I just get this ringing in my ear, just really vivid, high-pitched ringing. And I looked to my right, and there was this other crystal store that I wasn't planning on going. It was called Guru's, and I had never even noticed the store. It was actually a new store at the time. And I walked in that day and met my now Reiki master, Hector, who was a Dominican Taino indigenous shaman, and moved to America and became a Reiki master and did massive amounts of healing work. And at that point in my life, it was so, as you're saying with your experience, so tumultuous. It was like this volcano had exploded within me, and I was trying to just like pick up the pieces of who I am and what I believe, and what I feel, and what sort of energy I'm putting into the world. And Hector met me and he said, "You're a healer. I don't tell this to many people, but you're a healer, and I want you to study Reiki." Is after a deep conversation about love and about energy and all of these things, is like meeting a Jedi master or a master wizard. And he got me to start training with him that summer. And that summer I simultaneously was initiated in Reiki's level 1 and 2. And for anyone who's not familiar with Reiki, there's 3 degrees. The first 2 are beginner and intermediate healing, whereas in the first one you can perform healings on yourself and close family members. In the second one, you can start to do long distance energy healing from all over the world. And then Reiki Mastery, which is traditionally the master is supposed to tell you you're ready. A lot of I see a lot of people marketing, "Oh, become a Reiki master," and that just gives me a bit of, and I'm sure you feel the same way, like, oh, that's
so
not how it works.
So
that's
cringy.
like, oh, here's a black belt in karate. Or jujitsu. Just don't hand it out. But last year, after Reiki just profoundly shifted my life, I mean, I went from having no direction, limited to no direction. I dropped out of college because I was really just going for something that was going to make other people proud, but didn't make anyone happy. And so I started with Reiki, then got into karate and martial arts, traditional martial arts. And it strangely enough brought me to Maui. And I ended up on Maui as a 2nd degree Reiki practitioner. Studied massage therapy, studied Lomi Lomi, studied Chinese medicine, studied Qigong, and all of these arts came through Reiki. And it was like this initial seed that had been planted with my Reiki initiation just not only healed myself, but as I healed myself and I healed others, it expanded deeper and more open to this point where last year I was invited by my Reiki master Hector to become a Reiki master myself. And at this level, I feel as though I'm so honored and so grateful to have walked the path of Reiki. And here we are now, 2 Reiki masters talking about this beautiful art. And what do you personally feel is the gift of Reiki, what does it mean to you? What does it really represent at a physical and metaphysical level for you personally?
Mm. It's interesting to ask like on a physical level, because I kind of want to go back to that thing about becoming a Reiki master in a weekend. And it's really interesting how quick we are as a society to like grab a bunch of titles, but we don't necessarily have any way or practice embodying those titles. And because of that, those titles tend to attract like energies and situations and things like that very often the person holding the title isn't embodied enough to handle. And so it's really cool to meet another brother, especially that went through the many years of practice and the refinement and ultimately got to the point where, when you were asked, for me, when I was asked, I was like, okay, I don't know about this master title. I was in a very kind of still am a very heretical kind of vibe, and like didn't really want to carry a teacher or master title. And I was like, okay, how can I reframe this to fit me though? Because this is something I want to study, and this is something I want to share with people, and I want to be a teacher. I want other people to learn from what I've learned from. And so what I did is I kind of flipped it around. Instead of like me being a Reiki master, I was like, how do I feel about being a slave to Reiki? Or how do I feel like if I make Reiki my master? Where if Reiki says do something, then I have to go do it. And it was the best decision of my life, bro. Because as and some of the listeners may not, but Reiki really the initial spark for our Grand Master Usui Sensei was to achieve this state of I know what my purpose is. And like for me, not knowing what my purpose is and looking around and seeing so many people who had no idea what their purpose was, that was just like, when I found that out, I was like, and this wasn't until I would say a year or two into my my Reiki mastership. So I've already been doing Reiki for like 5 or 6 years before I started really learning, diving into the actual history of it for myself. And for me, what that kind of translates to now is a sort of like embodied state of peace. So it's like for instance, I saw something the other day about a men's work or organization, and they're calling themselves the Unshakable Man. And I was like, I know life through shaking. I know life through quivering. Hawaiian, the word for man is kanaka, which means the quivering one. And so for me, it's like not necessarily becoming unshakable, but finding like peace within these quakings and these vibrations and stuff, because life has definitely not gotten easier, but I've definitely gotten better. So for me, what I see with Reiki and I see with people is like, we have these wonderful homes in our bodies, and through different traumas, through different experiences, parts of ourselves get locked down. And you're familiar with this, we call it byosen, which means like translates to block or like toxin in the body. But for me, the way I see it, it's like vacant space that it's alive though, so it's calling in energy. But if it's not calling in energy consciously, then it's doing it unconsciously. And especially when it's coming from like a place of trauma or societal programming or something like that, a lot of weird stuff gets called in. So the way I see it, Reiki was a way for me to like repossess that land and reintegrate it into my own field, which again, I'm a slave to Reiki. So if Reiki's like, offer this person a healing, it's like, offer that a healing. It's like, don't go to this party or don't do this, do that. It's really just a surrendering. So in that embodied sense of peace, there's also that element of like, I trust everything that's happening to me in some way is like, it's happening for me, not to me. And that is actually a practice, because it's like life has thrown things at me that I'm like, how in the world could this be happening for me? And of course, through the practice, through Reiki, I've been able to sit in that quivering and that shaking and kind of like allow the truth to rise to the surface. And then everything that's not just gets to be drained out. So And that's a very physical experience too. Like, I remember when I first started my journey, I was very much so into like the heady stuff. Like, I wanted to know about all the chakras and all the nadi points and like all that's, and meditating a lot and different techniques and what were my past lives and just all this stuff that when it comes down to actually holding space for yourself or holding space for other people, all that knowledge is really like not that useful. It sounds cool, and again, like with those like society chasing titles, that was something that had to be looked at with it myself. But yeah, bro, it's an actual practice. And that's funny what I tell people, because a lot of times they're like, heal me, how do you heal people, how do you become a healer? I think I'm a healer. And I'm like, yeah, we're all healers. Like, if you get a cut, it heals itself. You can comfort and soothe yourself, you can comfort and soothe others, but how are you practicing? Because practice doesn't make perfect, but practice does make permanent. And so that's that, you create those habits. And so yeah, it's a series of like behavioral habits that like ultimately has just gotten me in this place where I'm like stoked on life regardless of what's happening. Because if there's something like quote unquote bad, like the pendulum is swinging over here, life and Reiki has showed me that it's also going to swing that way. And when it swims further into, like when it hikes further into goodness, that means my roots are also going to hike further into not badness, but like sorrow or struggle, whatever it is that in the moment is, it's kind of like on the polarized side of it. But that's again, the trusting that like, that's what life wants. Life wants to go deeper, dig the roots deeper and make the branches higher. And also that there's this like harmony to it, that like the branches aren't going to grow faster than the roots can grow. Because when you can make it look like that, you can hang like bells and whistles, like, your Reiki master certificate on like a, a little sapling tree that's still growing. but ultimately, like, you gotta let those roots mature before the branches can actually reach up higher. So, yeah, man, that's kind of like what it is to me right now. And it's always changing, as I'm sure it is for you. Which I'd love to hear your little perspective on like what Reiki is for you right now.
Yeah, one of the most empowering, I feel like, things that you just said was talking about opening up and sort of seeing what's inside and what kind of, I think the word that you used was like the land, reclaiming the land within your body. And from a true translation of what Reiki means is Rei is universal light and Ki is universal energy. So when you open that door in your life, and when we both opened that door, it showed us the light, it sounds so corny, but bringing light and working with the light in your being, for me, and it continues to be like this, is finding all those cells in our body and saying, like you said, you don't want to be a slave. For me, it was like, I don't want to be a prisoner in my body anymore. So Reiki was like opening up all these cells, all these rooms, all these old spaces, all this land within my body, which is of the earth and which is elemental, it's physical, and bringing in light, and in deep meditation, going into the ancestral trauma, going into the genetic trauma and all of that darkness, and deepening down to bring light there, so that there's a magnificent mansion and fountain and temple when I go into my body, and it's not this space that has been neglected, or the space that hasn't seen or felt the light because it was so trying to lock away all of the good and bad emotions. So in terms of empowerment, it has really opened up this sense of purpose, this sense of true north, the true water element of, this is what I'm here to do. This is my river that I'm flowing through in life. Usui, Sensei Usui, when he went up to Mount Kurama and went to the peak and met the goddess of Reiki who brought him that wisdom. And as you said, he's looking for purpose. He activated that seed for all of us practicing Reiki, all of us who are receiving Reiki, to have that experience of purposefulness. And in that, we don't have a linear, like, it's not like we're here to just do one thing. There's so much winding and weaving and transforming of form in that water element of purpose. And in my path with that, it's been taking me on an intuitive journey. I had no idea why I was going to Maui. I didn't know I was going to study with sacred Hawaiian elders who hold this magnificent knowledge of ancient indigenous people. I didn't know I was going to meet some of the best friends of my life. I didn't know I was going to study with Qigong masters and meet Ram Dass and all of these things, but Reiki, that light energy present in my heart said, go there. And it's like, when I was there, I understood. And there was purpose, but it was like the water. It was like the masterful water element. It was just, the storm takes up the evaporated water and just drops it off somewhere where it's needed. It's not like this, the storm's like, I could really go for some Costa Rica right now. I'm gonna pick myself up and go there and plan it out and make sure I do everything very practically. It's just like, goes up, elemental forces bring it down and plop it in the right place, right time. That's how I ended up working with Sacred Sons. That's how I ended up meeting my wife, the love of my life, in Glastonbury. And in that sort of light, there's this divine quality of not only purpose, but clarity. And people think that, oh, when I have clarity, I'm going to understand everything. It's not like that. It's like the light shines on what you were meant to see and what you're meant to do and feel. And you're like, it's beautiful. I don't know what it is. I don't know how it works, but I'd like to know. And at least I can see it now. And that's what the path has meant to me of Reiki, is that illuminating this sort of sense of, oh, I do have the power to heal myself. Oh, I do have the power to utilize a meditative mind to teach others to go deeper within themselves and have a richer experience of life. Oh, I do have this archive of Akashic information present in the library of my being that has not only my personal soul's wisdom, but all of my ancestors, whether they were light sorcerers or dark sorcerers or a farmer or whatever, they're flowing information through me. So it was an illuminating, enlightening experience in every sense of the word. And to bring that light into people's lives, into our own lives, is not always easy, as you said, and that fluctuating oscillation of the light has been a prevalent theme, in that the brighter your light is, the darker the shadow, or the bigger the shadow. And when you go into the shadow with Reiki, you have light constantly. Whatever color your light shines, whatever vibration that you're oscillating at, no longer do people really have to go into this, I'm completely lost anymore, because you have that seed of light within you that says, okay, I am a conductive electric presence, a beam of light, just as much as every star in the sky. And that has been something that I've really thoroughly enjoyed and been content for a long time with. Ever since starting Reiki, there's just been this content feeling, this happy feeling that's not like, it's not like high. It's not like, oh, I'm really high and happy. It's just this deep content pleasure from life and from the richness of the connection of oneness that we all share. And every time I lay my hands on somebody or just walk into the community with the power of Reiki, with the power of the ability to transform vibration energy into higher oscillations of light, it's just been such a beautiful path to walk. And I'd like to shift now to us talking a bit. I would love to know about a bit of your experience in sessions with clients, friends, families, lovers, all of that. What has that experience been like for you in actively utilizing Reiki to heal?
Yeah, it's so funny. Only a Reiki master would ask that question, because there's so many like nuances and little things that happen in sessions that a lot of my own personal biggest breakthroughs in my own life have come through me working with someone else, and kind of after the session, them departing and me just kind of sitting in the energy and being like, oh, that was for me. Like that was all the things that I said there, and a lot of that experience was for me. The biggest way that it's affected me, though, is I've worked with all kinds of people, men, women, children, animals, elders, pregnant women that gone through miscarriages and stuff like that. And so I think the biggest impact that it's made is really, it's allowed me to not just hear someone's story, but kind of like empathetically feel a body moving through that energy. I'm very visceral in my experiences. Like, I don't really see much. Sometimes I'll have visions, but most of the time I'm like hearing kind of like sounds. Sometimes words come through, but most of them are just like really low pitched frequencies. And then I feel a lot. So like I'll be moving my hands over their stomach, and then I'll feel like a tightness in my stomach, and I'll be like, huh, beam the Reiki there. But so that would be the biggest thing, is like really tapping into the human being's element, or the human being's ability to like mirror another person, and really be like disembodied in a good way, like to actually like surrender my vessel to like do something, like the same way a soldier like surrenders his body to war. It's kind of like you and I are spiritual warriors, and we're surrendering our bodies to the general of Reiki, who's like, all right, you need to take a step back so that Reiki can move through you. And that's another thing of like really having the watching myself be attached to the outcome. Like if I'm doing Reiki for the first time on a pretty girl that I like, which I love to do, because like that's like, you want to know me? Here, lay on my hands. And watching myself be like desiring for her to have like a good experience. And I watch that kind of like, that always comes up with anyone, as whether it's a woman I love, or just someone who is creating an exchange for me. And it's really interesting to watch that because the impact also has been like, in working with other people, it's a really great time for me to like shadow watch my ego and see when my ego is like, it's not that I'm not following the authentic thread. Whenever I'm in session with someone, it's really easy to follow like the thread of where Reiki wants to go. But I watch my mind be like, kind of like logically, like you're talking about the storm, which I love that example, is like, I watch myself kind of be like logistically like, oh, this, like putting pieces together. And I can tell now, like when my mind is putting pieces together versus when like my body of wisdom is putting pieces together, which has been really, of course, fun and humbling to journal about, and just reflect on in general. See, I have one more thing that I wanted to say, like, no, I lost it.
It's all good. Yeah, the ability to step out of the path or the sort of blinders of ego is just with Reiki, with massage therapy, with everybody that I've personally done healing for, and I've had numerous of my most masterful teachers tell me this, whether it's Hector with Reiki, whether it was my friend Alton with Reiki and fitness, whether it was TJ Frank with Qigong and Chinese medicine, or Gina Nalawai with Lomi Lomi, or Roy with the psychic lessons that I learned from Sensei Roy, was it's never you. It's like the moment that somebody thinks, oh, I am this magnificent healer, that's when you know they're going to have about 10, 20 more years before they even come close to being a true master. It's not me. It's the light flowing through me. It's the water flowing through me. It's the fire bubbling and springing up from my spirit. It's the earth groundedness in my physical muscles and my bones, and the metals and the plant life and the Father Sky, Mother Earth is like, and the stars. It's never just a Reiki practitioner is this mystical person that just has this special mind power. It's never that. It's always an ability to channel what's around you and what you're connected with in oneness. Because once you get into that ego, it's like all the energy goes from like to like ding, ding. Like this dinky little dinky, not even worthy of being called Reiki at that point. And I feel like that goes beyond just experience with healing others. It's also been in my athletic life, in my social life, in my connections with others. The less ego and the more Reiki is there, the less I and the more we and more light and more elements, the more richness and wealth is found in that experience. It's like there's moments in life where, say, for example, take a form of Owen that was a teenager and depressed, could go to a beautiful beach or could go to a magnificent forest or even a regular forest, if there is one, and just be bored. Oh, what am I doing here? This means nothing for me or whatever. And then take Reiki Owen in this in this particular experience of channeling the forces of nature, and it's just I could be sitting with a rock and be in total awe. And that's naturally who we are as kids. Kids are taught ego. So you take Reiki Owen or Reiki Marco when they're 5 years old, they're channeling massive amounts of light, massive amounts of joy that other people can feel, because they're limiting the perception of self that's ultimately there for survival purposes. Oh, I'm this and that's dangerous, or I'm this and that's trying to take my energy or my resources.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're just in a sense of oneness, which is light is this one force that comes through, then we don't have to really even think so much about life anymore. We just kind of, as you're saying, feel it in our being. And it's not just relevant to people who practice or receive Reiki. It's whatever you do, the more selflessly you do it and the more attuned to the truth of nature and the forces of nature you are, the more miraculous things appear to be.
Yeah, man, absolutely. That's so important for people to remember, is like, this is an instinct. If like you see someone crying, we have an instinct to go and comfort and be with them. And us trusting our instincts was literally what kept us alive. And now that we live in these like really happy, like really safe worlds, like it's really activating for me to see, and this is probably a controversial subject, but there's so many like social rights issues going on, and a lot of like racism, like resurfacing and being brought into the light ultimately, because it's been there all along. It just wasn't being, highlighted as much as it is now. But it's like we've come such a long way from like instinctually, like the survival that we used to be in as human beings, like was literally like a tiger could just come into the village and start eating people, or another village could just come invade us. And so I think it's an interesting like practice to come back into contact with that instinct, and like for instance like the killer within all of us, because that's how we used to get our food. We used to throw spears and catch buffalo and that kind of stuff, because it seems very polarized from what people would envision like a healer to be. But like a healer with killer instincts, like peaceful warrior, we both know, like is like, okay, a lot of people say that they're peaceful, but really they're fucking harmless. And it's like you have to know that, like, that full spectrum in order to really appreciate and to like master that. And a big part of that is actually knowing the ego, right? Like it's not like we're over here trying to kill our egos. We want to understand and help the ego grow, because for me, I feel like the ego is kind of just like an immature version of the soul, in the sense that it's like the little sapling that eventually is going to grow into a tree that's going to have fruit that can nourish others. But until then, it's like, you got to put a stick and you got to tie it up. You got to like sometimes like, train the ego, so to speak. But yeah, man, I think there's an instinctuality to Reiki that when I teach it, like I like to give people a lot of time to really just experience it, because so many people like they love talking about it, or they're really interested in it, but they're not ready. And I think it's important for us to be like kind of just like meeting them there at that point. It's kind of similar to when we do any kind of work, is like we can't take someone deeper than they're willing to go, right? So one thing I was curious about as you were chatting was like, we've come across like a lot of different characters in this spiritual world, and I'm wondering, like, because it's not something I run into often, but every once in a while I run into someone who's like a really powerful wizard or witch, and they're just totally driven by they're like getting high off of manipulating reality, which we can do. It's really potently we can do it. And of course, when that's not in alignment with everything around us and everything within us, it's like it can be detrimental. And these characters have kind of like are like invading spaces, like spiritual predators essentially. And so especially as a martial artist, I'm curious, like, if you run into that, and kind of like what you've done and how you've moved through that, because that's something that I don't want to say I'm newer to it, but it doesn't happen often, but every once in a while it's like one of these like snaky coyote men will come around in the community, and I'll just be like, is anyone else seeing this?
Yeah.
Am I the only one seeing what's going on here? But yeah.
Yeah, that's a really interesting dynamic, because encountering people like that is, some people you can tell are noticeably
Right.
utilizing dark forces. So like the guy in that ugly sweater with the glasses and billions of dollars, who I shall not name because they probably will will like put a block on this video, but the guy who wears a sweater and he has glasses and has billions of dollars with computer money, that's like a noticeably dark sorcerer type guy, but it's blatant, and anyone with an intuition or with relative research into the guy's life can see the dark sorcery. But
Right.
what you're talking about is what my psychic teacher Roy taught me as false light. And he said, when you're doing a healing session for somebody, it might not even be a physical person. Sometimes it's like a being that comes to you in your dreams or your meditations, and maybe puts on the face of Yeshua, Jesus, or puts on the face of this or that. But that false light, Roy taught me, he said, if a being comes to you and you're not sure of their benevolence or malevolence, what their morality is, always feel for the oscillation. Always feel for the vibration, because those who are of false light nothing will be there, he said. It'll be flatline. It'll be like a dead zombie, and they won't have that sort of energy, right? And so we can see this a lot with celebrities, because a lot of celebrities get to that level from darker sorcery or voodoo or certain indigenous and westernized, modernized forms of dark sorcery, which it is really, sorcery is manipulating reality, as you said, with energy. So that's a real thing. It's not like foo-foo woo way anymore. It's really here. So when you encounter a person, whether they're on a movie screen or they're in your life, and they're saying something, but the feeling doesn't match up, like they're saying they are this person or they're doing this thing, but the oscillation isn't there, it's just flat, I just steer as far away from those people as possible. I mean, I'd ignore them, cut them out of my life, wiggle over here, because when people are at a flat line, they're there to take energy. When people are truly of the light of Reiki, you'll feel a vibe, even if it's a little gentle. Sometimes really grounded people have a really gentle kind of feminine oscillation, but it's still there. It's more dense and grounded. But people who are of good intention for you, you'll feel it. You'll feel that wave. And I've noticed people do this in relationship, whether it's romantic or friendship. Sometimes people get pulled into the mystery of, oh, this person is just like flatline. I don't feel anything from them. I want to learn more. And then they kind of go into this dark hole of this person that's pretty empty. And they just want to take and take and take. So I try not to do battle with anymore. Not this version of my soul. I try, and my ancestors probably laughing at me like, okay, Mr. Sword and Shield out before negotiations in the spirit realm, but it's like,
I'm ready.
my Qigong master taught me, he's like, I asked him, same question I asked my my psychic teacher, my psychic sensei. I asked him, what is the best way to deal with those type of people, actually, what you're talking about, sort of those snake, coyote, wolf in sheep's clothing type people. And he said, Ho'oponopono. It's like, wait, but just Ho'oponopono? He's like, yep. And he's like, there's all sorts of Qigong moves that are from ancient, darker ways, that's like tearing the head off an enemy or building up strength so you could crash through their skull. And he's like, but ultimately karma is going to send it right back to you. So you're opening up a higher chance of getting harmed by seeking revenge or by retaliating. When you go into Ho'oponopono, which came up in last episode, my Lomi Lomi teacher, who's of Auntie Mahi Popo's lineage in traditional indigenous Lomi Lomi and Hawaiian arts, energy arts, she said that Ho'oponopono in the West has been translated as I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. But in reality, Ho'o means to raise up or amplify, and Pono means what's good, right, and effective. So when you do Ho'oponopono, you're saying, I'm going to make myself better. I'm going to improve my own karma and what I give and receive to the world, so as I'm not creating bad karma for myself or for others anymore. I'm entering this space of Ho'oponopono where if I meet somebody who's manipulative or greedy or hateful, I go within and say, okay, am I doing any of that? Maybe a little bit. Okay, so Ho'oponopono, make myself better so I don't attract that in energetically anymore. So that would be the best response that I could come up with for that particular particular thing, because plus people are so addicted to being loved. I mean, like being liked, I think is a better word. But
Yeah.
there are 7 billion plus people in the world. So not everyone needs to like you. And if somebody is really that sort of dark force in your life, distance, distance. Because if they're not willing to exchange energy the way nature does, which is reciprocal, the tree dies and it goes to the earth. It doesn't hold on to itself and try to live longer. So when parts of ourselves die, when parts of old relationships or old friendships or old uh, emotional connections or spiritual energies die within us, let it become compost and don't try to like hold on to those connections, even if you think in your head that you should try to like bring it back from the dead and and like keep it going forever. Nothing lasts forever.
Right. Yeah, that's a beautiful. That's very similar to the way that I get that and I view that. And that's interesting. You brought up this little piece at the end about life and like hanging on to life, because I feel like a lot of those people, when I have engaged with them and have attempted to discover something about them, it's like there's this like little part somewhere inside them that is the cause of that flat line that you're talking about, which is I've never heard it explained like that, but that's always what I do. I check in. For me, I'm looking for like the river flow, inside them. Like is chi moving in them? And then sometimes it's not, and I'm like, oh, that's very interesting. And then it correlates to like, well, I see the way that you were talking and touching this person here, and I was like, that didn't really sit well with me. I'm much less of like, I'm more of like a ninja assassin though when I like deal with these people. Or I I would never like go and like call somebody out like that. But because I was just like, for me, I was in it more for like, okay, why is this person showing up in my reality? And like, what are they reflecting about me that like I need to go now look at? Because as much as I want to like change that, like the only way for me to change that is really to look at it from within myself, and then like set that new vibration, and then like bring that piece into resonance from a distance. Because that stuff is like, it's heavy and it consumes a lot of time. And again, that energy of taking and wanting to extend things beyond the natural time is, it's caused the cause of like a lot of suffering, which really ultimately is like, the way I see it is like, when we do receive these traumas, when we do things happen in our lives that later down the road need to be healed, it's kind of like we weren't present for that moment in the moment. And that's what our bodies do. If like there's a lot of pain, it'll start to numb that part of ourselves. A lot of emotional pain will start to numb that, and we can use substances and things like that. But if the pain isn't felt, it gets like stuck in the body, like you were saying, a prisoner. And it's like, so it's like this person has like, maybe something happened to them, in the back of their heart, and there's like their whole body is now being dictated by this like tiny little numb spot in the back of their heart. And that's creating, in music production, we call it a phase, when you have a positive wave and a negative wave that are canceling each other out, and it makes no noise, which, if you're making music, like you want there to be sound. So it's like, it's like it cancels itself out. And so it's just really interesting to kind of put together like my little, experience with those types of people and your experience together. And now it's like creating a nice phase, which is like they're similar but they're not the same, and then now they're creating this nice like vibration and this nice waveform. So thank you for that, bro. I just learned a lot right there.
Of course, you're most welcome. And I feel like what you said sounds like something that been really telling as many people as I can. And I think that's a good sort of ending point, is feel it to heal it. Whatever anyone who's listening to this talk is going through, if you're feeling something, whether it's from somebody else penetrated into your being that you're feeling, or whether you're personally feeling some sort of some sort of thing that you don't like, feel it. Let yourself feel it, because in the past, myself and many people are going to resonate with this. When you try to run away from the darker shadow work that needs to be done, or the depression or the sadness, it doesn't go away. It's still there in your body. So feel it, and it becomes lighter and less dense, and you can start to bring more light to it. So feel it to heal it. That's I'm all out of tea. That's what I usually end it, when I'm all out of tea.
Yeah,
But
me too.
big love and aloha and gratitude for you, Marco. It's been such a joy and such a fascinating, wisdom-filled connection, and so mysterious how we've woven into each other's lives. And I'm so appreciative of that. And everyone watching this, big love, big aloha to you, and wishing you all just a wonderful day or night, whatever part of the globe you're on at this point.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. Had so much fun, learned a lot. Appreciate you so much, brother. Looking forward to our next in-person connection as well.
Yeah, let's get Sacred Sons Glastonbury. There's loads of men who need it here. A lot of grown boys that need to burst through that wall into manhood. So let's get it going over here, please. I need some backup.
Well, let's chat after Convergence. There's going to be a lot of it's always what happens when we converge, all of us, and then we all spread out. The frequency of events that have been being held by people who are not part of the triad this past year has been very impressive and powerful. So would love to talk with you more about what that path could look like, because we want this work available all over, and I want to be able to support you as well in your community. So let's get it.
Yeah, definitely, brother. Enjoy your day, and just everyone remember, feel it to heal it. And you can contact Marco at Reiki Marco on Instagram, and you can contact myself on whatever you found me on right now, watching right now. And yeah, just big love, aloha, and blessings to you all.
Aloha.